4:30 PM, we'll call the meeting to order. First item on the agenda is the review and approve the agenda.
I approve the agenda. Listen,
Make a motion.
make a motion to approve the agenda as written.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Agenda's approved.
Sorry.
All right. Where the hell did you get that? Oh, in your bag.
Oh, you want one?
You don't try to switch. Second item on the agenda, review and approve the meeting minutes from January 29th.
I thought what we just did.
No.
No, the
We approved the
agenda.
agenda.
Oh, the agenda, okay.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, yeah, this is for,
You see any issues with this?
no, I just had a question on the cost being, it says not less expensive, I thought it would have been. It's not.
You're looking at the minutes of the
Yeah,
meeting.
minutes, yeah, it's under costs. When I down there are not less expensive than a custom there, I'm thinking, well, you're not paying for a casket and you're not paying for
For the summit.
for the,
Where are you reading?
whatchamacallit,
Right there.
for the
Thank you.
cement thing.
Okay, do
that.
Did she say that? She must have.
Somebody must. have.
I could look
Lisa
up,
Groves, I mean,
I could look up the rules for the Westford Green Burial, because they have them online, and double check that.
well,
Charles
that's
said-
not the point, really.
Well, we're gonna discuss it
The
today.
point is it's in the minutes of the meeting, someone said that, green burials are generally not less expensive for the cemetery owner. It didn't come from us, so it had to come
Oh,
from.
Lisa.
Yeah, it could be, I wrote the minutes, it could have some issues with my notes. There might be a confusion here because the cemetery owner being the town.
Yeah, I think
Well, no, unless
Yeah.
they were meaning license holder.
Right,
Maybe that's
A lot
what they
of
were
them?
thinking,
A
well,
lot.
lot
they
owner.
threw that under the new mass general law, is what they were.
Oh, gee.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you wanna wait on the minutes and I can clarify that? Or whatever the commission wants to
Well,
do.
I asked him, he said it is more
I
expensive.
mean, that is true.
I think
For the-
that's,
for us.
it's part of her presentation.
I think we
So-
should leave it in
Just
it.
leave
To me,
it.
it's okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's fine. Then do you sign it or Dan sign it?
Oh,
Or-
now Dan submitted it.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Okay, so. You
I
have
took
to
notes
sign
that day, yeah.
I took a lot of notes, they look good.
it? I thought it was good then.
All right, I move, well, I'll give you guys. You've done reading
That's the stuff we talked about.
it. You put in the next meeting is scheduled for Monday, January 22nd.
Here's that.
That's happening before the minutes. It's the next to the last line of paragraph on the first page.
Oh, yeah, I don't know why that's wrong.
Oh, so that should be deleted.
Yeah, I will
Yeah,
just strike
just-
that.
Okay, we'll
Yeah.
strike the whole thing. Other than that, I think it looks good.
I actually drove through or biked through their green burial section. Just was grass. Somebody had a bench. I actually knew it was my son's kindergarten teacher in Westford. Yeah. So it's in this back section of the cemetery. It's near near where the bird sanctuary is, you know, the
In Westford?
yeah.
Never, I don't even
That
know.
was good.
Yeah,
Well, which cemetery? We've got
Pine,
like
Pine Grove, Pine Lawn.
Pine something.
Yeah.
Cemetery. Okay. Mhm.
I think we had several. I moved to the.
1 second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Accepted.
Okay.
January 29th with the one correction.
Yeah.
All right. Tom Dealey, Massachusetts Cemetery Association and Cemetery Helpful Solutions. You're up, sir.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, through you.
Well,
Yes, sir.
go
Yeah.
ahead, I'll let you do the.
Yeah,
whatever
little
you
intro.
wanna Tell them what happened from the last time we got together.
Yeah, so, no, thanks. I just wanted, I know we were looking at getting other perspectives about cemeteries and, specifically green burials, but Tom, he has over 20 years' experience, just managing just one cemetery, right?
57 years.
Yeah,
total.
total. So his company does consulting for cemeteries and so he actually came in and looked at ours and some of our documents and helped me work through them from an operational standpoint. So he has a lot of, knowledge, expertise in cemeteries. So, I know we specifically have on here to talk about green burials, but I'm sure there's anything, Tom, you want to help us with, operation wise too, would be great. So,
Which cemetery are you associated with?
Well, what happened was, for many years, since 1967, I was part of one in Boston, without getting into names, but one of the larger ones in the city. I was there through up until about the late 80s, when I founded Cemetery Helpful Solutions. Since then, the Attorney General brought me in and I took over a cemetery in Taunton, for the purpose of recorrecting it because some funds were kind of directed and some families were getting a little concerned. They went to the Attorney General office, so I took over and put a whole new board together and did that. We have a large green burial section that got developed there. Natural burials really, but it was dealing with a faith-based situation.
What year was that they started the green burials?
Well, it's natural, it's the way it got set up and procedures, and we'll get into that a little more, but that was done now a little over 6 years ago.
Why do you differentiate?
Because there's a great difference between green burial and natural burial.
Okay.
Depending on if you're going to look at it as a hybrid, or if you're looking at it with conservation, which some groups have been doing, and or under a conventional procedure, which is no equipment, hand digging, all of those types of things. I'm not sure your previous folks that came and spoke to you as to, how those other cemeteries are doing it.
Pretty much green.
Well, green to the point that you're thinking of it from the dollar side, yes.
Well, green to the point be it cloth shroud,
Okay,
shallow grave, shallow depth, 3 feet, I think it was.
well, that's looking at Vermont, what they went through.
Some of
They've
them
had
are
some concerns
like
with that. Yeah.
Basket weed, wicker basket,
I mean, no concrete.
no concrete, so.
And that becomes, and those are the things that I want to discuss with you
Yeah.
and throw on the wall different ideas. I
Yeah.
mean, where it's working, some of the folks are definitely promoting that form of burial. The other part of it is, as a municipal, you've now taken over a cemetery from someone else. And burial rights are in perpetuity. It becomes a question then as to what may happen, how families perceive a natural green burial, and will they get to reuse that burial space again? These are things you've got to think about. Or now, in the case of Dan's position in managing the cemeteries, I don't know, I mean, I'd love to look at maybe the regulations and procedures, but one of the other cemeteries that is a client of mine is Great Barrington, who does have the right of allowing families to choose a natural burial or green burial. However, there's additional fees and procedures relating to that. So those all come into play also. The more responsibility in operations, putting aside the idea of, oh, it's great for the family because that's what they want. And in most cases, it is an environmental reason that they want to do it. They want to basically look at the carbon footprint and how that could be saved because the outer burial container is not being used. But then again, in the United States and in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, we are in perpetuity. So a lot of those natural burial graves outside of Mass or any of our United States is reusing some of that space because they're trying to save land and making multiple use. That's not the case for you folks in Ayer because you have to sell your burial rights in a perpetuity way. And those were questions we got into before with Dan was how many burial rights, how many human burials do you allow in a single grave? And, you know, are you looking at also, or is the commissioners looking at a green burial section completely away from the other graves? Knowing what I've seen at Woodlawn, I see a newer section or a section undeveloped, but I don't know if there's other land out there that you are thinking of developing for this purpose. So the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and this might have came up either through your attorney or in the meeting with the folks that did do this in Westwood. I don't know if they even met with or looked at the state because the DEP does have a model guideline that says we don't want to see if you're going with green burial. We're suggesting you shouldn't have any more than 50 graves in an acre of land. Well, that becomes a difficult.
Really?
Yeah, I've got the notes right
I'm
here.
sure that they went through the legal thing.
No, no, no.
Yeah.
I'm not saying they hadn't. What I'm saying is these are things that would be looked at that I grew up at. Yeah.
But that's for traditional with the vaults and everything, right?
No,
No,
Oh.
that's without.
green, I'm talking green now because of that. Now, in another cemetery I had in Holyoke, they wanted to open up a section, and of course, when we got into the aquifers and a few other
Right,
issues,
right.
they made a stipulation when the cemetery was open, the land was designated for cemetery use. They required that it would be a outer burial container, and they required it to be a vault, which is a sealed outer burial
And
container.
that's, yeah, because that one in Holyoke's right there on the hill, it runs right to the river.
Right. And the one, but this is dealing with the one that starts going up towards Northampton.
Yeah,
Their other one,
Yeah.
okay? So when we did that, that's different, but the question that I'll try to answer is, are we designing a newer area altogether? And then put together the regulations for it. As you were saying, it would be, I think in the minutes, it'd be less expensive. Well, it could be less expensive for the license holder who wants to use your grounds to bury, because they might not be using that casket, but they still need the shroud, or you may wish to require still a form of durable container. I have learned that you don't have your own staff that opens the grave and so forth. It is by a contractor. But in many of the other cemeteries, even Mount Auburn, when Candace was there and we were doing a lot of the things for Mount Auburn at the time, the bigger concern with the first shroud that came in, even though they had some with Muslim burial family, you know, was for the staff handling that because they couldn't
no way to
handle,
hold on to it, right?
couldn't handle it as
Right.
well. That comes into play as to if you allow it or set up policies and procedures for it, then how does operations handle it? Okay. And also there is definitely no documents here that would protect you, the town, for retrievability or anything else that some families do think that they can do. Even
That's right.
with that, they're not educated to the point to say, I want green burial or I want a natural burial because I don't want to deal with the professional funeral draw, or I don't like the cost. You know, those things kind of come up once in a while, which is sometimes the reason for it. Not that, no, but there are families that want it. I understand that. I'm the legislative chairman and handle all the legislation that's going on in the Commonwealth now. And we've just finished the environmental friendly new dispositions, looking at composting, NOR, natural organic reduction. I call it composting. And or alkaline hydrolysis, which is the use of other chemicals so that you're not using a crematory for heat.
Quicklime.
So, you know, those things all come into play. Fortunately, the legislators have tabled it all due to some issues with the medical examiner's office and others, but that's not for today's discussion. But it is part of the total picture that we're working on for environmental friendly ways to help families if they're choosing to do that. In all fairness, we do not have a lot of folks pounding down the doors to do it that way. Some of them do want to do it to avoid the professionals. They don't want to use the licensed funeral director if they don't have to. And I've got many cemeteries that have had burials brought to their cemetery by families, not by the funeral home.
Wow.
It's interesting, Westford requires that there's a funeral director.
Yeah. There is a couple now that are taking that on, and I think that is tremendous. I mean, they're working it. But I mean, what Dan and I got into the discussion with is more on the operational end. How you can do it, then how's it going to work? How is it now in the case, very truthfully, with the religious of the Muslim families that do burial with the
And I
shroud?
thought Jewish too.
Many depends on
Yeah.
Orthodox. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's true. However, what they're all doing now, due to the responsibility of the cemetery for ground protection so that nothing caves in and you have a liability to somebody falling that's visiting a different grave, and or not retrievability, but the ability to shore up your grave. Two of the vault companies have the Orthodox boxes, liners, that have a bottom piece completely missing from it. And truthfully, at the cemetery I had in Taunton, with the matter of fact, the Muslim families have taken, that's been taken over by them now. They are requiring the Orthodox type box rather than no outside cement at all. And it's still with the shrouded body and so forth. I worked with the Board of Health, who had a brand new cemetery in Peabody, and they originally went with a vault only due to the water table. And it was accepted. So the shroud still went
Into the.
in, but it was still not that natural 100%
Yeah,
green burial that maybe you're considering or want to go. And that's fine. I mean, as I said to Dan, whatever the direction is, it's changing your new rules and regs, which has things we talked about anyways, but also making sure you're protected within your procedures, your interment authorization form, and all the other things to make it work for you and make it work right.
Well, one of the things that just stuck in my head, this 50 burials per acre,
That's.
that's 870 square feet per burial.
Correct.
that's a lot. That's too much. We sell, our lots are 3 feet by 9
This
feet,
is-
aren't they?
Mm-hmm. This is under,
20,000 square
this
feet.
is under Mass DEP. That has this set up. It's one of the things I found when I was working with another cemetery.
Mhm.
And I said, okay, looking at it as an entire section out in the field or whatever with no monuments and so forth is one thing in our planning. Or if it's giving the rights to the people who already have burial rights in the cemetery to do that form of burial.
Is there some
And-
sort of mandate that prohibits mixing and matching?
No.
So
Other than.
we discussed early on about a separate section.
Mhm.
But looking at what's out there now, is that an acre of cleared land? Is that a whole acre?
That's section 5.
Yeah, I don't think it is.
I don't know.
It doesn't look-
Who says that? Who made up?
Mass DEP.
Probably close.
Is it?
Yeah. I could look it up.
But are we beholden to that?
Yeah, do we have?
That's their recommendation, or is that their?
I don't know.
Yeah.
The section 5, so it was laid out by the previous company and it's mostly available. They sold 5 lots in it. So I think we would have to address those. I don't know legally what happened, but
Who did? Oh.
the previous company sold 5 of the lots in that
My
single
suggestion,
group lots.
my suggestion or recommendation would be is to allow, if you did it, would be allowing it within graves, not possibly opening up a separate section due to some of the your operational requirements, sometimes of shoring the grave, really the outer burial container is really shoring the grave.
Right.
Yeah.
The other issue, and I've worked with Green Burial, I've worked with Jeff, I've worked with all of the folks. One of the bigger issues that they have been doing lately, and we've had some discussions about this, is a lot of times they're putting fill next to the grave, allowing the family to be part of that burial, no different than a Jewish faith, putting the soil back in and filling the grave. The problem is OSHA requires that soil to be 2.5 feet back. In many cases, it doesn't. This is the part that I'm getting at, to protect the town. Now, if it came up that you're doing it and all of a sudden you're putting soil for someone to put back in, God forbid, a cave, why did we have the trench fill that came about?
That was a 6-foot marker though. I mean, we're talking about 3 feet. That
Well,
trench fill
but
won't fit
now
in
you
there.
gotta be careful of depth,
I think.
Right.
I would think, 3 feet is.
Well, that's what I had read. That's
Westford does? Yeah.
that's what the information.
Is that what
was.
Westwood is doing, 3.5 or 3?
Remember the presentation? It was 3 feet.
I think it's 3.
So that they can climb in and pass the body down?
Don't know the reasoning behind it, but I remember the depth, because it
Yeah.
surprised me that we only went down 3 feet for a natural or green
I
burial.
don't think 4 feet. at least.
No, that's what it said.
I know, but I'm thinking.
We were doing, for the section we opened up
Mm-hmm.
and did for the faith-based, we were still at 4 feet,
Oh,
4.5, we're a little over 4.5 feet.
But you said. you're
But we
putting-
also used the Orthodox liner.
Right, which is like a
Not,
box this way.
it's a normal box.
Yeah, with no bottom.
It's not doing a teacup. A lot of the
Oh.
cemetery, they're taking an actual liner,
Mhm.
and that's the other thing of looking at definitions. You have an outer burial container.
Mhm.
That should be in your requirements for burials as of now we talked about.
What's an outer burial?
An outer burial container An outer burial container is the outer burial requirement that is holding the casket from earth load and protecting it. So a liner could be a 3-piece cement unit with 2 cover tops, so it could be a 1-piece, but it's unsealed. A vault is a 2-piece sealed.
Well, all right.
I mean, your
Saying it's a,
funeral directors
One
would
and the
like to
same,
hear, for
basically.
merchandising purposes, they do like to hear the word vault because it's a higher end product.
well, that's
Of an
true.
outer burial
That's
container.
fully encased.
A liner is fully encased also.
Hmm.
It's just not sealed.
Is it? Okay, cause I've been,
They put a cap on it so it doesn't.
so
It's still doing the earth load. It's still
Right.
protecting the
But is
OSHA
it-
requirements. It's still,
is it like this with no, and this is the ground? Or this is the ground and it's like back and the body's here? The body's there, which way is?
when a grave is prepared and dug, it's dug down at the 4.5 feet for a single depth burial. Now, again, depending on the cemetery
Yeah,
and what they require for the number of human burials that are allowed, when I purchase my burial right in your cemetery, am I getting a right of single depth burial?
That's
Or
the
am
way
I
ours
getting
is
the right of
right
2
now.
human burials?
Right
You're
now.
placing another human burial on top, but it's cremated remains. it's still a human burial.
Well, in that respect, we had one full-size human and we allowed cremation, a second one with
Yeah.
cremation urn, or one plot with 3 urns. So-
And what I've been promoting, and good, bad, or indifferent, I've always had a structure of allowing each single grave the right of 2 human burials. So when a family purchases the right, you know what your responsibility is for to the license holder. And the 2 burials could be, then you identify it as 1 casket burial and 1 cremated remains, still in 2 human burials, because the memorialization becomes another big issue,
Yes,
or 2 cremated remains.
in our case, we allowed 3.
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, if son that goes the other, what I've done is I also have heard from many commissioners and other select board members, we have no funds. We're kind of doing our thing and we're moving along. Well, it's an old joke I used to go, when you purchased a brand new car once upon a time, they give you a lot of extras that you pay for. In a grave, business-wise, by keeping it at 2 burial rights, it's not to say that 3rd one or the 4th one could go in the grave, but you do it as an overcapacity additional burial right, and the family pays for that additional burial right. That becomes a business situation, good, bad, or indifferent. But it looks at the budget if you're finance, or if you're looking at the dollars that are invested within your cemetery. Those are,
They're still paying for each burial, they're just paying for the
That's-
size of
but-
the lot,
but-
right?
right, but when you purchase a vehicle,
Yeah,
you can purchase a Chevy, or you can purchase the Mercedes, or you can purchase, you know what I'm saying? You have different levels. Cemeteries today that I'm dealing with, New Jersey, a lot of my ones, they're doing triple death burials. Of course, they're charging 18,000 to 24,000 for a single grave.
so we were just charging a lot, which is 3 feet by 9 feet.
Correct.
For X dollars, and then going with whatever burial, if they wanted to.
But it's
'Cause we
not
don't
there,
do 2 caskets, but we could do a casket and a
right?
thing, so
The
you're saying,
families need to understand that's not their land space.
Right.
They're getting, which you
yeah,
term.
yeah,
And this would be the same for green or natural burial. I mean, you have to be definitely rewriting in here how you're receiving that. And again, your
mean?
attorney, your town council did bring up the things of talking to your board of health. If the
Yeah.
cemetery is so designated, and this was a question Dan and I got into because I know you acquired Woodlawn Cemetery.
right.
And it was the way it is right now. I said, did the previous board of trustees that now have assigned it to the town of Ayer, did all of that land get designated as cemetery use by your board of health?
I don't know.
And I found out in many communities, as they purchased additional land, everyone knew it as XYZ Cemetery, but they never got the land under the section laws that require the Board of Health to approve it as cemetery.
Oh, we have to do
I
that?
haven't looked into it, but.
That we got into a
Council
discussion just
did
for the
bring up a transfer, but I haven't looked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We just assumed.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice that you acquired it. True.
And so we were gonna follow them on the Westford. They had the regulations and then they had an addendum of doing burial regulations. So I don't know what else you went through that's in those regulations that you might recommend to change, but
Well, a lot of it even into the price list. We have many, Great Barrington, we're talking right now with a price list that I'm redoing with them. We're looking at, if they're using an outside contractor, that they have a contract price to open the grave.
Mhm.
The contractor was getting an additional fee for the burial or not having an outer burial container being placed in the grave to accept the body in shroud or casket.
So you have two, I used to work, be in charge of St. Mary's. They had one person, one company would dig the grave.
Yep.
Another vault
Vault company would come in based on the funeral director selling a product to the family,
Right, and then, but.
and that would come in.
And they would put that in, then you'd have the funeral and put the vault cover on and then
Your own staff would come back,
No,
or the
the
contractor came
came
back.
back and filled it.
So you, yeah, I mean,
That
but the
That's what.
fiduciary responsibility is still to St. Mary's,
Mhm.
and they just had those people doing it. That's
That's what we
where-
do.
That's what Dan and I were talking
Yeah.
about is,
Okay.
how are your procedures and steps? I didn't know until I first came and did what we did with the documents and stuff.
Okay.
To know that, because I'm always, if hired, a lot of times I'm here to protect the liability of the town. That's number one.
Yeah.
Some of it you might not like, but it's what the goal is.
Yeah.
That I know I've worked with your town council a lot
Okay.
in many communities. But anyways, let's try to get to Greenbelt. So,
Is it like that?
If we're looking at a liner has, in most cases, it's one piece, bottom and sides.
So it goes like this,
It goes into the grave.
yeah,
The orthodox one is missing some of the bottom, but it has a lot of it. So, but when you set it down in the ground,
so there's
ground-
holes.
the ground is, yep, the ground is touching.
Okay,
So it still has structure. That could be an option for your protection for the town, still giving someone the green burial or shroud if they wanted to go that route. So they still have earth to earth.
yeah,
In the case of what I know the Muslim faith does, is they add extra dirt inside of that outer burial container. So more earth is to that, but then they place a cover over it to protect them. And it also protects the town, so for less settling.
mhm. So there is a.
Now, I also have some cemeteries that in their prices have an additional fee for having a natural burial, green burial, and which also includes settling, because there'll be a lot of settling.
If they don't have the box? What are you calling the box?
Well, it's an outer burial container,
Outer.
OBC.
OBC.
You'll see that in section 1 of chapter 114.
Burial.
And these are things I write, when I revise rules and regs, to make sure all those definitions are there to protect the community that's doing it.
When you start talking about a liner and a vault, this does not sound like a green burial.
It's not, well, again, it becomes what your Board of Health requires. If you're doing, Mike, that is why I'm leaning you towards, if you've already got a developed cemetery, and if you want to allow a natural burial, you would do it within certain graves rather than opening up a whole new section someplace, because
You'd have to have that.
Because why?
Outer.
why? Well,
container.
part of it is the common DEP talking about the 50 burials in an acre. I don't know what the water table is there. I don't
It's
know what.
probably around 10, 12 feet. I
It's
never
pretty
looked.
deep.
That'd be good.
They-
Yeah,
they said
yeah,
actually
because the
put us
gas
there.
station right next to it.
Yeah, I
They
know
put us-
that.
they put
And-
We did test wells over there before they sunk the tanks
Okay,
Yeah.
to make sure they wouldn't float.
good.
Yeah, and they don't even have a raised
Good.
septic or anything. It's
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
They're
that's,
pretty good over there.
yeah, that's tremendous.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, I guess I also have the question, why is formaldehyde considered better than human remains to go into the water table? I mean, that's a whole nother
well,
question.
and we've had that study and it's available to anyone that wants to see it. There is no issue with the formaldehyde due to the fact there's not enough of it in one body. You start doing natural on that same basis, real close to each other. Now you are putting a lot more material closer rather than being protected by the outer
And
container.
what's wrong with the human material? What's poisonous about that or can contaminate?
There isn't, it just,
Studies of-
No, I have no problem with it. I'm just saying these are things that are
People
being.
jump to that idea. Another question I had is, okay, we have a lot of historic cemeteries in this state. They didn't put the vaults in, they just buried them and
Yeah, but
then,
they didn't, embalm them either.
right, and in a natural burial, you're not embalmed.
Correct.
So they just put you in, I guess, a shroud, a basket,
And
a high
embalming is
box.
not mandatory, so.
No,
So-
and it's mandatory more so by the home, funeral home. And to allow the body to be brought in, it's supposedly
And, yeah,
there are
when-
health reasons for the body inside.
and-
Truthfully, cemeteries were, be very proud, and I'm also guys, thank you folks for at least looking at these ideas, but cemeteries were all open through the pandemic where your funeral homes
Yeah.
weren't, and we got we handled a lot of families.
yeah.
So it's a position from working, it depends if it's one grave, if you're gonna open up a section, I mean, and I think the answer to your question was this, Susan?
Mhm.
Okay. That DEP was they're saying they'd like to see it as a requirement, but it is kind of a formula that they would like to see used.
Ooh.
They who,
That's DEP,
of the state.
the state.
They would like to, but it's not been legislated.
So it's a guide, like a guideline, basically.
Yeah,
It's
recommendation.
It's,
So
sorry,
the 800 and some odd square feet is primarily because of leaching capabilities? Is that what I'm understanding?
yes. I look at, when we do cemeteries, and I have an acre of land in a cemetery, I'm looking at probably anywhere from 750 to 1,100 graves.
Yes,
With a vault.
Lined up,
With
be it
vaults.
even
Yeah,
like
like
what you
that,
got here. I'm saying being designed to be a grave, be it 3x9, 3x10, because you got a foot for a monument,
Right.
you have a walk path, however you
Yeah.
design it. If you have tons of acreage or availability to you, opening up a green burial section that has a much more open flavor, that's great. It's a good opportunity. It's just depending on your needs. Now, section 10, when you get into, up until when you got Woodlawn, you didn't have a cemetery in your town, right?
No.
So you weren't meeting the
right,
state law.
it's required that the town has one.
But you're using Woodlawn probably.
I think,
We were.
yeah, I think we were.
Yeah, I mean, if you
Yes.
had a,
Oh, yeah, there was a.
if
town
you had a
section,
burial, you would have
Yeah.
probably done it, the town would have probably done it in that private cemetery.
Yes,
Now it's your cemetery.
yeah,
So you're meeting your requirement of burial of your dead. Of course, that's a term and definition that we discussed a little bit as to some communities are not selling the graves to their residents. They're only using them for the needs of certain burials, for indigent and so forth. Due to the fact they don't have a lot of extra land. And they, or it's only for residents, and they have a real strict code as to who that resident is that's purchasing.
Mhm.
Do we
So-
have a lot of indigents being buried in air?
No, you probably don't.
but
Resident.
You're looking at across the board, I expect there's probably a substantial amount in other towns.
But we're just caring about air right now, I
He's
thought.
giving us a pretty broad.
I'm really, that's
Yeah.
what I'm trying to do.
I don't know, our town council mentioned DPH, Department of Public Health, and DEP, we're looking at furthering guidance for green burials. Do you have any
I'm working
insight on that?
with them. There's a lot of things going on right now.
Yeah,
And a lot of it goes back even in the 80s when I was working with Vital Records and we were doing a lot of that. They really want to look at this more because it is a request. People are asking. The bigger question of what's been happening is what is the definition of a cemetery? Because there is more and more forests or outside groups that are trying to possibly develop their own memorialization and generate, and do they have to follow under the cemetery rules? And be a not-for-profit, they're trying to get into the other end of the world.
If I remember right, cemetery is attached to a church, graveyard is not. Is that the way it worked? Have I got it backwards?
backwards.
In- right, but in chapter 114, when we've now rewritten it,
Yeah,
any cemetery in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts is now following the law.
regardless
We're
of
not-
whether
we
it's.
got- There's no collar per se to the religion.
Okay,
Um,
Oh,
it's
you're
under
supposed to
their,
do that?
it's under their governing authority. Okay,
Mhm.
your governing authority is your select board. They've appointed the three of you as commissioners
Mhm.
to do their wishes, per se. You're not elected, right?
No.
We got into that.
Yeah.
Elected has a little different, under chapter 114, an elected cemetery commissioners do have a little different control within their cemeteries than the appointed. And then there are some that have no cemetery commissioners in the select board with their DPW director or their parks director, or whoever they've given that right to, handles the cemetery.
what, this is strictly an opinion. What is the probability of DEP getting legislation on this 50 bodies per acre rule? That troubles me.
Yes. I agree. Unless you got
Particularly if you're
land,
running out of real estate.
that's the big thing.
Yeah.
And I hear it's either real estate they're running out of or no funds. In all fairness, these are the two big things I get with, well, municipal government. It's like some churches that don't want to have a school, pastors.
Mhm.
There are a lot of municipals that wish they weren't in this, having cemeteries or having a section. What did I just say?
It costs
Chapter.
how much?
It is.
What is this check,
Chapter 114.
Chapter
what is that?
114.
State regulation.
This
for
is,
cemeteries.
all cemeteries in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts follow chapter 114. That is our governing law. Now, the major part of this, which is what your town council spoke about, is if you had a raw piece of land that you wanted to designate a new cemetery
We have to go through the Board of Health, get it done.
and the town. And again, that becomes that fine line. That's why I was trying to understand when I worked with Dan here too.
this is, I got it,
That's it. But it's,
I got it. I
Yeah, we think we've got
yeah, this here all got written here. I did that. That was all approved by working, matter of fact, when
So
acting Governor
so-
Salucci did, we signed all the new terms. So if you look at these,
I want the definitions.
okay, so if you go,
A,
okay,
and
uh,
this is.
we get into flag, we get into grave
Grave
liner,
liner is an unsealed
Yeah.
durable outer.
the outer
container.
burial container,
Yeah,
okay?
Two, so. I'm trying to, if it's unsealed, so there's no bottom?
It's unsealed on the top because, well, how do I,
Can you
there
tell
are
us?
some funeral homes and that purchase from the vault company a two-piece unit, the whole bottom and your sides,
Which is,
that piece. And they have a top that goes over it that
Mhm.
sits on a little edge that completely. Now, if there's a sealing device to that, then it's sealed and it would become a vault. It's still an outer burial container, which you don't want to see for a natural burial. I fully understand that, for green burial.
But you can put more in the land if you do that. You can
Well,
really line
you
it
have
up.
other requirements of OSHA. You have other responsibilities to the town in protecting your grounds. Okay, as to settling and so forth. They come into play. There is the trench law that when you're digging, I ended up getting cemeteries exempt from the trench law when the Commonwealth was passing it. The reason why their definition of a trench became what a grave would be, 3x9, 3x8. That was the start of it. So many cemeteries, I was getting calls,
hypothetically, that's correct.
and I was getting
Yeah.
calls from DPW saying, we're not gonna go for a permit. We're not gonna put steel pad on the top of it, we're using you know what I'm saying? There are a lot of different things came
In
in.
a trench box.
Yeah,
So we got ourselves exempt from that. Using the argument, the outer burial container that goes into the grave is your shoring device.
I'm still
Okay.
trying to figure out
But
what it
that's,
looks
you
like.
But-
know, I mean, I don't wanna be splitting hairs over the damn
No.
thing. You know, it's almost like it's not a confined space, no one's going to be in there.
However, my faith families, on the Muslim side, they want to, we're at 4.5 feet, they're going inside and holding the body and lowering it. They aren't using,
Rope,
straps,
line.
okay? And that comes
By
into play.
hand, they do that.
Yes.
So the
Okay.
hole has to be big enough for,
No, it isn't. They stand inside the outer burial container that
Yeah,
happens to have no bottom to it.
oh. no
Yeah.
problem.
It's not 100%. It still has an edge for support of the structure.
So it's a rectangle box like this.
Correct.
This is looking down.
And they have a
Just-
unsealed top that goes on top of it. That helps the earth load and other equipment. Of course, they don't like anybody else driving over it.
Yeah,
Yeah. What about mowing?
Well, again, if you're doing a whole section out someplace and have a nice field with wildflowers and all of that, and you have no monuments and everything else, you don't maintain it at all. You leave it alone.
well,
However, there is another little part of the law that comes into play that when you design when a cemetery designs a section and starts selling those burial rights, we have to have a map, we have to have a graves marked. You have to have them
Yeah.
numbered out there.
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
I know a lot of my communities I deal with do not do that. I hate to say it,
How do
they're
you
not
find
doing it.
somebody if somebody
They,
looking for it?
they are not marking every grave as they should. They might have corner markers and so forth.
yeah, that's what ours in section 4 has. That's what the
What?
previous company did.
Right.
There's the 10 block graves or.
They made a 10 plot clear and then
Oh,
they
so
sold
huge. 5
companion graves or whatever they
Yeah,
did
so they
within.
mark each of it.
That runs into your problems, as I've seen there, when we were there, with your monumentation, your memorialization, with your distance and why you might have to move a monument to dig a grave and so forth, which is why many cemeteries are changing even that part of it, because the cost of doing that. But let's say with the green burial to help you with that, okay? Just throw things on the wall. You could do it. You should check with your, you're able to check with your water and everything else, but one of the other areas I think that needs to be checked is, did the previous governing authority of the cemeteries gather all that land? And was it just approved? Or did it go through DEP? I mean, excuse me, your local board of health and approval within the town?
So you want both DEP and?
No, no,
or
no,
just the
well,
local?
DEP
Yeah,
comes,
that's easy.
DEP comes into play if there is any water table issue.
Right. I don't
We
even
know
know
there's
if
not.
we could get that answer from the Board of Health. Like, how long
They may not have it.
cemetery exist?
And if-
They might not even have it,
I
Yeah.
in
can,
all fairness.
I can look into that. I imagine council might have looked at that when they got the transfer. They should have, but maybe not.
You told me that we had the open section and then there's wooded behind there that is available to expand further.
That's the question I asked Dan. Are we stopping at the tree line or
No,
is
the
this
tree
more
line's part
land?
of the cemetery.
Yeah,
How
So the
far?
property line
The
does.
property line goes
Back.
way back.
Okay, so you could be putting in other roadways and clearing. and-
Yes.
You could, yeah.
Which would allow you to do what you wish to maybe be doing in a different section.
Well, that's an interesting point because of some of the natural burial I read, it's undisturbed woodlands.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
Your friendly forest groups that are
right,
trying to play under the drip lines of
Yeah,
their trees and
so-
so forth. They're also getting $5, 10, $15,000 for that opportunity to place your, fortunately, cremated remains only, because they're not designated as cemetery.
um,
Okay, now, we as a cemetery, this is an argument I've had with Vital Records in the Commonwealth. We as a cemetery must have a burial permit to open the ground. That's part of what that burial permit does. It gives that permission for us, for health reasons, as a designated cemetery, to open the grounds for that grave. Now, back in the 80s, we dealt with the very same thing, and we're dealing with it a little bit with the new Maverick system, the new portal that is now being developed by the Commonwealth and trying to get more records. And we also have our veterans groups who want to know where all their veterans are buried. They're not at a crematory. They're at a cemetery, hopefully someplace. That we, cemetery, are required to have a burial permit for the burial of all in our cemetery. That includes cremated remains.
Mhm.
So we said
Makes
it was,
sense. Sure.
which it should be.
That's
you know.
what I used to do at St. Mary's. I'd get the.
But you get the
burial
certificate. See, a lot of my certificate would get the certificate of cremation from the crematory, not a copy of the burial permit.
No, I had to, because I had to send the burial permit to the town hall.
Correct, correct.
Yeah.
That I signed,
That you-
that
yeah.
I would sign that it was
Yep.
buried or
Yep.
this or that, and to the town. So
And that-
that's
and-
it, town clerk has it.
And that becomes another part of your families who want to be environmentally or want to do a green burial. Does Westwood, you said, is requiring still a funeral director to bring the deceased to the grave?
Well, I don't know if they're required, they just said, I can confirm all this. for
Yeah.
us, but they just,
So we need to find out if the land has been designated for just cemetery
From the
Yeah, that's-
Board of Health.
from the Board of Health.
it's,
I
That's a whole,
do that.
that's a whole different issue.
And this, I know there's a simpler way to do that,
Okay,
okay? And that's basically having your full plot plan
Mhm.
and just getting it reconfirmed. If the
By
Board of
the Board of
Health
Health?
does not find the paperwork, I've done this at six, I did this with
Yeah.
6 different communities. I've done it with the Board of Health. They couldn't find any
Right.
records. We went back in with the entire plot plan of what was truly cemetery land and got a re-blessing per se.
from the Board of Health, that we could use all this as land. It seems to me,
It's designated as cemetery land.
it seems to me we're kicking a bee's nest to open this whole question up.
The only reason it came up is because when
All the
we,
land has been approved legally.
We
by-
gotta do it
we have to. do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's probably been done.
because
Yeah.
in the
Okay.
not too distant future, we will run out of real estate as well, and we're gonna be faced with the same thing. Is that land been,
Designated for cemetery.
The town's doing blessings now, okay, so how many acres is the whole cemetery?
5, I think, in total, the whole thing, if you
That's it?
include all of it.
And how
that's
much
both
are
sides of the
used,
road?
right, how much are used now? How much have we built
I
up?
don't know.
Like you're saying, we're gonna run out of space.
Well,
That's a.
If you look at it on the
Airport.
gas station side of the road,
Mhm.
you're filling up the developed section already. You're going to go back into the next section, that's where we're going next. 5,
How many
Section
graves?
5?
5,
Five.
yeah.
Graves a year.
and then there's more land behind there. Now, we
Uh,
don't know
Between 10 and
if
15,
section 5
because that's how many
And-
burials we're doing.
designated, blessed, whatever,
Designated,
whatever adjective you want to use.
permitted,
Yeah, we don't know.
but there's more land in this
Okay.
section.
Yes, there is.
So that each
Yeah.
side is 5 acres, so this side's 5, this side's
We're
5.
2 acres, and look at, that to me is a lot of
And
open
then,
land.
and we've only.
Well,
just
the question becomes how
Yeah.
many burials you allow in a single grave. That's why cemeteries have gone up, either
Yeah.
with buildings or columbarium. They've done other things to handle that. Your populace, based on your populace in your community, the national average is about 1% is your death rate per year. Now, based on the marketing of that, I'm gonna use the word marketing and business wise, is if there were other cemeteries in the area, you know, let's figure it out of that 1%, there's a portion that may go someplace else to be buried. Thus, that changes the numbers that you would be getting in your populace, what's your total?
About 8,000.
Okay, so that's only eight or nine, and there's how many burials a year?
We've been doing about 11, 10 to 15. Say.
So you're just above it, and again, your World War II veterans are now kind of come off, and, you know, we're all on that other end of burials when we think of it. For the future, we're good for at least 25 more years, right? So that comes into play. Those are the studies that I do for some communities that are looking at all that type of stuff. But the only reason it came up is when we were standing out there and I found out you've acquired this cemetery. And there were a lot of questions you were asking, Dan, in all fairness, when I was trying to get an answer to help you folks, other than just green burial. You know, I was trying to look at it in a much larger picture. But green burial, as it is more designed, you know, it's that environmental, it's the carbon footprint. Some people want to do it because they think it is less expensive. They think that, like in your minutes, it is not. It can be much more expensive. Truthfully, the folks that have sections that are running their cemeteries as a natural or green burial cemetery completely, their grave prices, their opening fees, everything else would exceed many municipal cemeteries of what you charge today. So it works that way. The other thing is you'd have to have certain paperwork because now the body is definitely not retrievable, and you need to cover yourself by having paperwork signed, not just an term authorization form, but other forms signed that certain things can't be done.
So you have said a lot, you want to help protect the town from legal attacks.
That's
People
fine.
love to sue towns, and
Yep.
towns get hit with the golf and they spend a lot of money on lawyers, okay?
Yep.
When has the cemetery ever been involved in some legal dispute?
I've
How
got
often
three
does this
going
happen?
on right now.
And what were they on, just briefly, like?
One was the lowering device failed.
Lowering device for the casket,
Yep.
okay.
And
What
two others were, they did not do their mapping correctly and they resold graves. And they didn't have a clause that allowed them to correct their issues.
And that caused a family to sue.
Fortunately, as a municipal, you have a maximum of what you could be sued for. Right? I mean, yeah, I mean,
I'm trying to think of the same year.
But-
We've had
Well-
one,
well,
we had
even,
one
I know I've
we-
worked for the diocese of multiple, I mean, Springfield, I was in.
Yeah. Boston.
Springfield and Boston, I definitely was,
Yeah.
yeah. But that's beside the green burial is a way into the future as to how you want to look at that. I mean, there's even concerns that I have with some of my Catholic cemeteries today that are truly looking at how they accept the cremated remains. Is it 100% of the cremated remains? Has the family redivided it in multiple
yeah, right.
situations? The church has its feelings of the new dispositions. They might like alkaline, but they don't care for NOR,
Mhm.
okay? Natural or green has its terms. Green burial is more the hybrid, when I was saying that. That is grave being opened by manpower, soil being placed on the side, no equipment. The body probably has not been treated in any ways. That's up to the funeral director and what the family does. If the family is doing a home wake, they have the right to do that. I have cemeteries that have had the families bring their deceased to the grave.
Mhm.
There's a lot of cemetery management that just couldn't handle that. They didn't know what was happening. It all, those are the things that,
That seems more like a natural rather than a hybrid green. I mean, digging by hand is more of a natural base than,
correct.
so.
Would that you
Has
consider?
anyone ever
digging
dug
by
a
hand?
grave? I buried a dog and that was horrible. It was hard.
Well, that's what I'm saying. How is, the question would be, is you had folks from Westford, or Shirley here, they made a decision how they're doing their graves, how they're interpreting it,
Mhm,
and how they present it.
mhm.
That's all.
They're using machines.
They're using the machine.
Yeah,
I'm reading the regulations, good memory, right now.
I give you, yep.
Right. Now, someone could come up to you and say, well, I don't want it that way. I want a true, natural burial. And that would be, that's not acceptable
Yeah, the
here and
shelter.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean,
Yeah, that's what we have to
this is
decide.
why,
Oh, right.
okay, I think we haven't come to that point. Dan and I were just talking about
Yeah,
where do you want to go?
right.
It's like throwing everything on the wall, which you're listing, and I commend you for gathering this information. I don't know what they chose to do. I know I talked to many cities and towns that are even looking at pet cemeteries within their cemeteries and doing all these things because that's somebody's requesting it within their town.
Yeah,
That's why we have legislation right now dealing with those issues. So the thing is I guess the question I would have is when you look at green burial, based on what the other towns have done, how would you want to offer it to your residents? That would become the question, and we'd make sure we,
No,
Technically.
I think the question becomes, what are we required to do, or what are we required to follow? That'll give us the options of what we can offer. Now,
right.
if the state says, you can't do this, you can't do this, you can't do this, then obviously we can't offer carte blanche. But if there's no state requirements, then what I'm hearing is we can pretty much offer whatever we choose.
if the cemetery is so designated, the governing authority has the right to set policies and procedures and rules and regulations for their cemetery. Now, you're gonna be selling burial rights, you're a municipal, so you can even have your clause in there as to what a resident is, if you so wish.
We do.
We do have that.
I know, I read that, I
Is that
mean,
acceptable?
however, there's some communities, because of space, there were people that lived there for many, many years, have left due to selling, then wanted to come back and purchase graves. And at that point, they weren't considered residents,
Oh,
even, you know what I'm saying? So those little, but that's beside the point. You have to look at your land, what you have, and what your number of burials of new grave sales are. And kind of go from there. As for the natural, then if you're gonna do that, then some of your paperwork would have to change. The question would be is, do you want to, for your own protection, still give them the shroud type of burial, but you could still require some form of outer burial container. It still allows them earth to earth.
That sort of defeats the
I
purpose. really.
totally
does. No,
agree. I totally agree.
I agree,
but can it be?
but then again, if somebody now walks over a grave that let go,
Oh, yeah.
which can happen in
Of course,
any,
Yeah.
then and someone gets hurt, you, the town, are the responsible party.
And then.
you didn't answer my question about the probability of this 800 and some odd square foot.
I don't, I think it's
Do you have
gonna
a gut
go,
feeling on
the gut feeling on a natural is I think you're gonna see a higher number than what they were thinking. What that is, I don't know.
it? It will be mandated.
But the issue is.
We don't
yes,
know when, we
that
don't know
could be
how.
mandated.
Yes,
The bigger issue is I look at is the business of running a cemetery and having the funds available to maintain and care for that cemetery without it taking away from dollars that are for other important parts of a community or even as you know, a private cemetery has to worry about all their costs.
Mhm.
And when I do a cost of fee, many municipals are very surprised at the numbers of what it really costs to operate. Because if the staff is doing the work, fortunately, you have an outside contract, and so you have a set price. But it's still taking your time from here. And I didn't see any administration fee to that. That dollar is like to the family or funeral director directly to that person, if I'm not mistaken. Right?
For like a burial opening or something.
Yeah, for your opening.
So yeah, what that ends up going into the town's general
General
fund. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it'll go back.
I
Yeah, we-
remember some, I've
We're
done,
not, we're
I've
not a
done,
cost center,
Yeah.
no.
yeah. But the thing is, I sit and say, okay, you've got two nice new pieces of equipment that are opening graves, they, you know, that type of cost.
Mhm.
40% benefits to the employee that some people have to pay for, the health insurances and
Yes, we have to
pensions
look at it,
and-
'cause it's not apples to apples, like
Yeah.
air. we have to-
municipals don't look at, right.
We
I mean,
could use it to.
right, so that would come into play. So it's that management of the cemetery that you'd have to look at.
Mhm.
If you're going to open up a brand new section, and so let's say you go past the forest line and decide that's where you're gonna put a natural or green burial area, then that would have a little different direction as to how you mark it all out, how you sell that burial right. I would say that you'd be looking at that as one burial right only.
Mhm.
Okay, that one individual, not even a cremated remains on top or three cremated remains on top. None of that. It's a single grave for that one burial. I would prefer a deeper depth because I've seen the issues in Vermont with their law that kind of said 3.5 feet.
That's it,
What were the issues?
animals.
It just,
I'd be surprised at that.
Westford says between 3 and 4 feet.
I would,
And if we're gonna worry about people tripping, I mean, you can trip over your own shoelaces.
You
and
can.
fall in your bathtub, and to have to regulate a whole cemetery to make sure it's like concrete, don't come in. This is a natural landscape, put up a sign, warning, it could be uneven,
well,
you can fall at your own.
Would we still have to mark out the four corners of?
yes.
We're supposed to have.
Marking out every
state
individual.
requirements, yeah.
That's.
The bylaw, you mark out each one.
And
You can do it through, fortunately, you've got electronics today and your GPS, there's things you can
Metal,
be doing
yeah.
to get
Susan,
that
I
over.
know they do for the regular burial. I don't know if they did
So,
that.
well, you
green.
said also that they charge,
Yeah, and they don't mow it, they take care of it.
they're charging more for this lot if it's a green burial versus a.
I have
Not-
seen in some
In what-
facilities that they're more than some municipals
What
charge.
is the reason? When
I
it,
mean, which
does it
that's,
cost the same to dig a grave, whether you're gonna?
why does, right now, when alkaline hydrolysis came about to save the carbon footprint over cremated remains? Cremation,
What?
Well,
they alkaline, we have, meaning that was a form of the environmental end, is alkaline hydrolysis was a newer form of disposition of the body.
oh, no.
Instead of burning it, you're just like simmering it in chemicals.
It's chemical, you're in a solution.
So it's alkaline?
It's alkaline hydrolysis. It's being tried to be passed here in the Commonwealth by your environmental
What
groups.
happens, how long does it take?
Well, that was the process. I went and watched. It was about a 15-hour process.
And what's left?
Well, it comes out very soggy and it then has to go through a drying process before you get it to the pulverizing portion that you would do after cremation. The cost of that was approximately, almost 15 times the cost of cremation.
Oh, my.
But it's environmentally carbon protected. I mean, why did, I mean, even we're looking at the issue of families that are trying to use their own property to do their family burials. We're having a serious concern with that because many of those are coming back as abandoned cemeteries. No different than you folks took over Woodlawn,
Mhm.
okay? That was a private group that, and you took it
You
over.
mean like a group of 10, like a family from the 1800s?
Well, I've got one I'm dealing in Howard's right now. They want to sell the real estate and they're trying to make a decision how they're going to remove all the family.
Oh,
Yep.
shouldn't have been allowed to put there in the first
You
place.
see a lot of that in New Hampshire too, the small
Sure.
family plots.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and I'm dealing with churches who have done memorial gardens with cremated remains. And now all of a sudden they want to enlarge. I have a lawsuit going on right now that the families have said, this is our cemetery. You have made a cemetery by designating this memorial garden to accept the human cremated remains to be here in perpetuity.
Okay, and what's the legal question on that?
And now the church needs more space for their building.
Oh,
So thus they want to move it to another location. They didn't plan accordingly.
Or they want to sell the church, some churches.
I
are
have that
closing.
issue also.
You're a busy guy.
Yes,
Wow.
I'm across I do Mexico, I do Canada, I do all the United States, yeah.
Wow.
I mean, I am the chairman of Cemetery Consumer Council, Service Council, which handles all of any complaints a cemetery consumer would have throughout the United States. We have a team of people that do that on a volunteer basis. That keeps the cemetery out of the funeral rule, which is what a funeral director has to follow within their pricing structures and so forth. When you go to a funeral director, you have to request your GPL. You have to have all the basic prices and so on.
So I have an eye on the time. I don't know how.
Yeah, no, I don't. I gave, yeah, you have something, but
Just asking.
I mean, I'm seeing families even coming for cremation, trying to do it for themselves financially to do
Do
that.
their own cremation?
They're going to a crematory
Oh,
with the deceased.
oh.
Natural work, it's a green burial and natural, I'm using both words, okay? It's environmental, your footprint. About 6% of the families that are choosing it are doing it because of environmental, selecting it that way. 24% is because their whole family has got that belief environmentally and they all want to be together, in a natural setting. Religion has its direction, the Jewish faith and Muslim faith that we talked about. And I think that's about it. The three that the Green Burial Council, you probably heard, was your hybrid, conservation, and your conventional. Those are your three forms of how a cemetery could be accepted to be doing green burial. That's it, the Green Burial Council was blessing you, conventional.
So you could do a green burial in a conventional cemetery, and that's what you were encouraging
That's what
us
to do.
Because why?
Well, you are a traditional cemetery. Unless you had another piece of land that you were going to, under the cemetery, go design it to be a full natural setting with no monuments and no outer burial containers, and you go do that, then you may need to get the new blessing of the Board of Health and the state, depending on that piece of land. That is why right now you have a cemetery.
Use what we have.
Use you have and maybe develop the paperwork to allow someone to be buried under a certain circumstance. You may wish to not be real green. You may wish to say that we want that outer burial container. We're still gonna allow a body to be to earth,
So there,
but with the portion missing. There's a lot of cemeteries, municipals, that have been doing what I'll call the teacup. They're placing the shroud
just.
and then they're putting the top over it, not using the rest of the liner
Yeah,
to help protect what they have to protect, because the liability is to the town way after we're all gone.
right.
That's all. I mean, leave it at that.
So let's say there's a row of graves lots that we have sold, and I bought the traditional one. But is there anything stopping me from being buried without
Your rules and regulations right now,
say it has to be a poured concrete? And
well, you require an out-of-burial
Mhm.
container.
Yeah.
Not a, I mean, and that becomes the definition of, does your funeral homes who are talking to families, are they understanding it as a vault, which is a higher end product that is sealed, or an outer burial container that is just a cement liner that's protecting the earth load?
Protecting
it's
your
short.
water.
The earth load and protecting the
Yeah.
casket.
it's
And
shorter.
it still has retrievability at that point. Well, there's a lot of
Yeah.
disinterments.
And have you had lawsuits about that?
Mhm. Well, there's question as to who has rights. That's why some towns require a court order for a disinterment. Some have paperwork in an application form
Mm.
that approves it. If everyone's in agreement, then you don't really need to spend the money of a court to do it. You know, it depends on who the license holder is. That's the other thing that Dan and I talked about when we were reviewing the rules and regs, is who's getting buried and who's the license holder, you know, the rights of heirs, all of those things that you have experienced.
So the license holder is the person who bought the land.
They're
Bought
no,
the
they purchased the burial
permit,
rights,
Burial rights, yeah, it's on the deed.
Right.
Okay.
which is if you opened up a green burial section, my suggestion would be you would only be selling single burial rights.
That's what Westford does. I'm gonna contact Lisa, the person who
Yeah,
got this through Westford Town Meeting. I mean, they have all kinds of educational
Mhm.
events and find out if they must market. It sounds like they have to market.
Yeah, I know they
Yeah,
do
mark.
traditional, they showed me their markers, they're around,
Yeah, the-
Okay,
we can
so there's
protect them,
big
I don't,
thing.
yeah.
Yeah,
yeah.
no, they're
Big
available.
stakes,
I mean, there's a
yeah.
company right in, just outside of Taunton, that does the
South Park.
foundry that makes all your grave numbers.
Yeah,
Yeah.
One of the cemeteries I'm dealing with right now, we made a decision, we're putting them in the foundation of the where the monument goes, they're pre-pouring all of that. So to save
Mhm.
time and
Yeah.
it makes it make loud, so there's no tipping of monuments and so forth.
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
I think that when we get to section 5, that'll be properly laid out, when I was in section 4 is on the scroll now, but.
Is it?
I mean, you folks can, I mean, I gave,
Sold at least, yeah, they're still in the front, there's.
you
there's still
worked
front
very hard in putting your regulations together. And there's a few things that are very small that I mentioned to
Okay.
just for compliance purposes, you may want to look at later.
So is our next step, we gotta check with Board of Health?
Thank you.
Yeah, I think,
Thank you.
thank you.
I know we went around in circles, but I mean.
Yeah, I'm only half thanking you. You introduced so many new things to think about.
Well, I throw a lot of things on the wall and it gets very difficult when I realize I don't, and I gotta commend you. I really mean that because at least you're asking rather than maybe just doing it. I mean.
You have a lot of knowledge and I appreciate you.
What was this for?
That's for later, I got something for you guys.
Okay, I gotta, let me get out so you can finish up
Yeah.
because it is late if you want to get home for supper.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna hit the road.
Thank
All right,
you.
thank you.
Thank
Pleasure
you.
meeting you.
It might not have been the last of us.
No. Well, I've given him some suggestions.
Yeah, thanks, Tom.
and
All right.
See, whatever you want to do. So anyways, thank you very much.
Thank you.
folks.
Thank
Be
you.
well.
We're on your help.
Right,
So these are something for later?
yeah. Under my report.
All right,
Okay, what do we got here?
DPW
You
director.
wanna go? Okay.
Give you a little trinket.
Oh, I don't.
I gave you one.
Yeah, so DPW director report.
Awesome.
So yeah, just
Yeah.
brief. Administrative operations update. There were 2 burials since the last meeting. We met on January 29th. It's been a little while. So just
Yeah.
only 2 burials. We've continued with yes, it's called SIMS, the conversion of all the records to electronic. And so we're actually using that, which
That's
is
what
right
this
here,
is?
yeah, coming up in the next item. So we've added a lot of the missing lots that were in the front of section 4, those got missed when they originally built Sims, so now that's there, so we're getting up to speed there.
What do you mean they were missed?
When we built the original electronic version of Sims, that on the map, they missed the front section of section 4.
Oh, okay.
So we had the company add that in. We get some free time with
Okay.
theirs every year, so we use them for that. And then Delaney, our engineer, helps build the Sim, so it's in good shape.
Okay.
Lot sale, one lot sale.
What?
So that's for signature by Mr. Chair, Sam. Yeah, so one lot, it was one of the front ones in section 4. No burial.
Black.
That's fine.
One lot sale, and how many burials did you say since? January?
2. There's 2. I know there's probably 2 more down the pipeline. I don't have any paperwork or anything on those, but I am aware that those are likely
And
coming.
what was the other thing you just reported? Sorry, I was trying to find my.
One lot sale.
Right.
Yeah, and then the electronic software
okay.
Sims,
Thank you.
we're just continuing to build that and utilize,
Yeah.
we're actually like utilizing it now. It's
Okay.
pretty nice. Just internally, we didn't
it's
make it
saving
public
time.
facing at all yet.
Is that, I'm actually.
Yeah,
Go
no, pretty good.
online?
We could, I mean, I would discuss that with you guys before we did, but Lunenburg has it online. I've
What's
never
the point?
looked at it.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like people trying to find if there's where the available lots are, like instead of having to come to me, say, hey, what lots are available? You could look on it and I could show them on.
Do they
and that's one
actually
thing.
question you about lot location?
Yeah, so when people are buying lots, yeah,
Yeah.
they might want to be in a certain part of the
They want-
cemetery.
Okay, okay.
And so usually
Next to
David
someone's-
Dean will meet them.
St. Mary's.
Like selecting seat on the airplane.
Yeah,
It's like, I wanna be over here next to so-and-so, a friend of mine, yeah, or
Right.
whatever, it's like,
I don't want to be
so
by the.
that's
Wow.
helpful. And then it also has information. So I'll get calls about people who call, hey, is this person buried in the cemetery there? And like someone from 1898 or something,
right.
random call,
doing
someone from
genealogy.
California. Yeah, it's like, yeah, Genie help. Yeah, like, yeah, it's kind of, you'd be surprised. Yeah. Okay, and then the last item I have is
Who's Bruce?
Bruce Penny. He owns, actually, it's in your little handout I gave. Yeah, you see that
Oh, that's
Sims
good.
printout there. So the Pennies and Bruce's owner through Hugh Penny have confirmed that 10 grave lot. So there's been burials you can see in 502F
These two go
and
together?
502G. Yes, they do.
Oh,
And so Bruce inquired, he had,
I see, Penny.
he has his parents cremated, but he doesn't want to bury them. He just wants to place down a flat marker to memorialize them. So I was, this isn't in our regulations. I was like, let me check with the commission because, it doesn't really speak exactly to that. And I think, did I include the email from
This?
Heather?
Yeah.
This
Oh,
one here.
that goes with this?
So
Okay.
Heather Monahan, this is Westford again, they're very helpful. So I asked her, at Westford, have you had many of these requests? And, in fact, she has, and it's actually called a cenotaph.
Yeah.
CENOTAPH. So, and this happens a lot if it's someone like a missing in action war and they, you memorialize them, but you don't have their remains. So
Oh, here,
you
this
put
right
a
here?
marker. Yeah. So apparently, and she says they allow 2 flat markers per grave. But then in their records, they essentially have it in their records that they note that it's a cenotaph, that there's not actually a burial there.
Well, can I ask, when they put the flat marker down, does it, I would think it would say, instead of the person's name, birth and date, you say in memory of. And the person's name and date, then I would think they weren't buried there.
Yeah, I mean, that would help, I think, but
I think so.
Well, I've seen a lot of headstones and flat markers that say in memory of.
yeah, it's true.
Yeah,
Oh,
oh yeah.
Yeah,
My dad's is like that, matter of fact.
I think my uncle's is too. I know you mentioned it. Yeah.
okay.
Thank you,
Okay.
VA.
So because I was like, is this something that,
So
the
this
cemetery
Penny
commission
owns
should
these lots
commission?
here.
Yeah,
Wow.
so he owns them there, and what
But he's
he,
only got one marker on the very left side or right side, whatever it is.
yeah, so right now they have the headstone
Are any of these
and
6 occupied? Oh, wait a minute. there's
nope, the
another
light
one.
blue are
Oh, these are
unoccupied.
all, look at, oh,
One,
so
two,
this
three,
is
four,
the
five,
bigger
six, seven,
one.
eight.
Oh,
So-
it's bigger.
So there's 8 unoccupied
2, 3,
single
4,
grade
5,
lots,
6,
and then there's 2 that have
8.
ashes in them. So he wants to put
Well,
a
there's
flat
4
marker on
it's like
402,
4.
502H.
So it's got 4 people in two lots?
Well, I guess
Yeah.
my thought is why not, and what are we charging?
I think, so he already submitted a monument permit application, and I
Mhm.
think we just go through that process and
But
So
the thing
then-
has to be installed, and is it gonna be flat?
Yes,
it would just be like your typical flush marker install, yeah, flat marker.
And what
It would meet our
are the budget?
requirements.
And what do we
Yeah.
charge for that?
It's $100 permit fee, so,
And that's it?
yeah, and that covers David to install the footing, David Dean.
yeah, but I
with
still
the
think
concrete?
I agree with the identification of not being bodies in there. I mean.
Right, so record
So,
keeping wise,
record keeping wise, we have to identify there's no bodies in there in case
Yeah.
at some later date, somebody else in the family says, I
Yeah.
wanna put a body in there, pull that marker out of there.
so I could, what we typically have is when there is a burial, we have an interment order form. I could have him complete one of those, but as a record, but note on there, cenotaph, no burial occurred.
Right.
And that,
And
that
that would
would fall off
allow-
the grave.
Actually,
Yeah.
that would allow the family to go back in a later date if they wanted to use that lot.
Yeah, but if they've got a headstone, don't they have all the names on isn't there room on the headstone to put all the names?
I don't know, but. I mean,
Right now, it looks like you've got 2 lots, but 4 people. Are they cremations or one of each?
those are cremations. Based on the shape, so there's 4 people.
Yeah. So do you know if the 4, is this the?
I don't know if they're on the back there.
Is that the picture of this?
Yep,
Okay,
I don't know that the back of the headstone looks like.
okay. So what is he's saying? He wants,
The flat marker at the foot of that lot H, I guess, the lot right in front of the headstone.
Yep.
This would be a question on Jeopardy. What's a cenotaph?
Yeah, right. I know, I didn't know that term until
I
I
never,
heard from Heather.
so this is for his parents,
Yeah,
and so
so they're both gonna be listed on that
Who was
same
Hugh
flat
Penny?
marker.
is Hugh Penny?
Hugh was the original purchaser, but I did confirm, and it's in writing that he passed along the assignment to Bruce
Mm.
of the,
Oh, he's
something
buried over there.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah,
so it is,
Penny and-
Bruce does have
Yeah,
control.
I don't think
So
you put a
who-
request. in.
These other people have different names. It says Hugh Penny and.
Those are the
Penny-
next,
Marcia Penny, and then it has James Farlow and Franklin Farlow.
They might be,
Relative.
Her relative, her family.
yeah, I don't know, I'd have to look it up, but it's
But
it's
if they
gotta
have all
be,
These lots, why don't they
Husband, wife.
just use them?
I don't know.
They're saving them. They might have a big family. I'm sorry, folks. I have to get going.
Yeah.
So, how much more?
So
What
I
do you
guess I
wanna
just
do?
need direction, or yeah, just,
I don't see why not. I think $100 is too little. Does that really
Hmm?
cover everything? $100?
I don't think it's enough either,
Yes.
because you've got Dave's time, you've got the concrete, you've got the measuring.
Yeah.
Is
that's
she-
what we normally do for a flat marker, yeah.
is that enough?
But that
Yeah.
goes with the grade.
but that's a published rate we gave out.
Yeah,
It is?
no, we did check that, and that covers Dave,
But that
time
means
and the
if-
concrete.
if We've already buried them. We've already.
That's got nothing to do.
No, yeah, there's a separate fee for that. Yeah, there's a separate fee for that, that's
Well,
the
well,
license fee.
cemetery loses money, I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not, I
We
don't,
we can go over the rates and do another upgrade next year.
All right, so are you gonna move that we, make a motion, somebody?
Well, we have to pick another date, don't we?
we gotta finish this first.
All right, I move that we, allow the Pennies to put a cenotaph on the lot
H.
H, and we charge them $100.
I second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, great.
Okay. All right.
Okay, so our next meeting, and like I had a lot of info.
Yeah.
Does anybody have any questions I should ask Lisa? I have some, but I'm gonna
Lisa
follow
who?
up on. Lisa Groves, the woman who came to our last meeting.
Well, one of the things this box thing he's talking about, says it has to be concrete, it can't be wooden, because wooden would disintegrate, right?
Yeah,
That would be
it
more
has-
natural.
organic, yeah.
But I'm just
Yep.
wondering why, I mean, I can understand for mowing it, but if it's gonna be in an area you're not gonna mow,
Yeah,
why can't you use wood or?
he was just, yeah.
It'll sink.
Yeah, it depends, yeah, if it's an area you don't mow it.
He was trying to recommend the most legally, the safest thing that could protect that, and he-
Legally ambiguous is what he was hitting for.
Okay, yeah.
All
Good
right,
job.
so how soon are we gonna meet? In 2 months? Are we taking the summer off already?
What month is this?
Yeah, I don't,
May 13th.
June,
June,
July.
that puts us into July.
Eh, let's go to September.
July, August.
January.
I wouldn't do September, I'd back it up. I know I'll be in Southeast Asia in September
Oh,
again.
Oh. I would say the 26th, that's the last Monday in August, would that work?
what do you wanna do, July?
26.
Does that work?
Works for me.
for me, yeah.
We're not in
Okay.
September.
Okay. This is,
So typically the 26th.
Yes, sir.
And the main thing, Dan, I would ask you to do is figure out that legal question from the Board of Health.
I'll look into that, yeah.
Is there anybody alive who would know the answer?
No, yeah.
Hopefully council did the homework there, but we'll see.
It's gonna be a long-
There's more people now.
do we know when the cemetery was founded?
No, I don't know.
18,
Yeah, there's
1800
1800.
something, yeah.
56.
Yeah, it's somewhere around there. It's a little slightly.
And I don't know how many acres they have, but they have over 4,000 plus.
Yeah, really, yeah.
How many? we
How
got?
many?
4,000.
I don't know the total. I've never, I could get it for you though. Assume.
All right,
Can you adjourn?
5:30.
Motion to adjourn.
motion to
No,
adjourn.
I moved to adjourn.
Second.
Oh, wait, I made that in there, shoot,
And it wasn't where.
detail it on the minutes.
Yeah,
Yeah, hold on, let me catch up. Betsy moved to adjourn.
No, Sam
did.
did, and I second.
Chair did.
Whatever.
Well, you're in a hurry, you got a bicycle out of here. I'll catch you
I
before
got,
the end of the street.
I have to host a Zoom meeting.
Yeah, I've been on them all day almost.
Oh. Did you get who did the stuff in the beginning?
I do. Yeah, I have. I can send
Oh,
it
I
to you.
should do it.
Yeah, I'll spell it.
All right.
Who's Amanda Lewis?
Amanda, she's
Are we
payroll.
all good?
I'm good.
She's payroll at the